Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really ambitious. It's not just a paper. The authors are framing this as a full architectural blueprint for, well, the next generation of civilization.
It does sound a little utopian at first glance, but the source material is surprisingly grounded. It starts with a pretty sobering recognition that while the last century gave us, incredible technology and connectivity, we're now facing what they call a cascade of systemic crises.
That's a perfect phrase for it. They list things like climate turbulence, the dramatic widening of global inequality, and this deep erosion of public trust in basically all major institutions.
Exactly. It's an admission that our systems are, in a lot of ways, failing all at once.
And the power of this document, I think, is how it defines success. A better world isn't this abstract idea. It's a concrete, measurable set of 20 outcomes.
Right, so our mission here is to analyze this roadmap. We want to focus on the most consequential levers, the points of intervention that can deliver both immediate relief and that foundational long-term resilience.
We're looking for those spots where a small, targeted action can create exponential, systemic change. And the authors stress this again and again. These pillars are not a checklist. They call them interlocking systems.
You pull one thread and the entire fabric shifts.
Okay.
So let's start with that immediate foundation. The pillars focused on human prosperity, what the document calls human capital.
Education, health, and wealth.
Exactly.
So we begin at the very root with Pillar 1, universal, future-ready education. The blueprint insists education has to radically expand its scope. It needs to go way beyond just basic literacy.
Way beyond. We're talking about embedding critical thinking, digital fluency, climate literacy, and what I call intercultural competence.
That's a massive shift in what we teach.
And it requires a massive shift in delivery, too. The key actions detail how to achieve that global access quickly. They really emphasize deploying low-cost, offline-first digital learning platforms.
Okay, wait. Offline first. Let's unpack that. What does that mean in practice?
It means the system is designed to function perfectly fine without a stable internet connection. All the content is cached locally. Data syncing only happens when a connection is, available.
So the core learning experience is continuous.
Right. It completely bypasses the massive global digital divide we have right now.
That's where it gets really interesting. You solve the access problem first, and why these specific skills, like coding, renewable energy fundamentals, AI ethics, why are those so vital today?
Well, for one, that knowledge creates an informed, critically thinking electorate. That's just foundational for good governance. But more urgently, these skills are essential to navigate the rapid automation and job displacement that's predicted.
So it's preventative.
It's absolutely preventative social stability. If you don't equip people with knowledge of AI ethics or sustainable tech, they just get left behind by the future economy.
Which links education directly to economic resilience. Okay, let's transition to health. Pillar 3, universal health coverage. And this isn't just about, treating a broken arm. The source material specifically calls for fully integrating mental health into routine care.
Absolutely. The blueprint mentions concrete steps like integrating mental health screenings into school health programs, making it a routine part of a general checkup. But it also stresses infrastructure,
How so?
specifically leveraging telemedicine for those hard-to-reach communities, to make specialist mental and physical health services accessible to everyone.
And the cost barrier is central here, too.
Precisely. They call for removing all out-of-pocket expenses for essential medicines and for primary care. When people aren't bankrupted by just basic health care, they contribute more, they take fewer sick days.
And kids perform better in school. It all links back.
Right, which all reinforces Pillar 4, economic equality. The wealth gap is cited as actively destabilizing social cohesion all over the world.
So the strategy here is progressive fiscal policies that redistribute resources, but, and this is a big caveat, without stifling innovation.
That's the tightrope walk, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just penalize wealth. You have to redirect that capital productively. Those specific actions include things like carefully constructed wealth taxes on the ultra-rich and globally coordinated efforts to close corporate tax loopholes.
But the real novelty is the tie-in. What's the unique connection they make?
They propose linking corporate tax relief or, say, government contract eligibility to measurable equity gains.
Oh, I see.
For instance, mandating rigorous, independent pay equity audits for large corporations, looking at gender and racial disparities. The incentive structure rewards companies that actively narrow that gap.
So it moves beyond just taxing and spending. It mandates a behavioral change and gives the public a trackable metric, those audit results.
And like you said, reducing inequality fuels consumer demand and stability. So when you connect the big picture, education, health, basic income stability, you're creating a truly resilient foundation for society.
Okay, so from the health of the individual, we now jump to the health of the planet.
The planetary pillars, safeguarding the global commons.
And this is where the scale of the crisis really hits home. Starting with Pillar 2, decarbonizing the global economy, slashing emissions to keep warming below 1.5 degrees.
The blueprint's emphasis here is on economic structural change, specifically implementing carbon pricing that fully internalizes the environmental costs.
Meaning the cost of pollution is paid up front.
Exactly. It's not externalized onto future generations or, public health budgets.
So how does that shift the economy immediately?
It just makes carbon-intensive activities suddenly way more expensive than their green alternatives.
Yeah.
Building a new coal plant becomes like financially suicidal compared to investing in solar or wind. This policy just accelerates the whole renewable energy rollout.
And forces the phase out of coal.
An immediate aggressive phase out, yes.
And beyond the grid, that same principle applies to how we feed ourselves. Pillar 5 is sustainable food systems. We know the current model is a huge driver of deforestation.
And soil degradation. The shift is entirely toward regenerative agriculture. This means aggressively incentivizing practices that actually rebuild soil health and capture carbon, not release it.
So things like cover cropping, agroforestry.
Exactly. And holistic grazing management. It moves beyond just sustainability and into being actively restorative.
Right.
And it also stresses empowering smallholder farmers with things like microcredit for climate-smart seeds and gently pushing societal shifts toward more plant-based diets to reduce that immense load from industrial livestock.
Which naturally leads to what happens after we consume. Pillar 9, the circular economy. I mean, we are choked by this linear take, make, dispose model.
And the blueprint introduces some really powerful policy levers here. Two of them really stand out. First is mandating extended producer responsibility, or EPR.
For our listeners, what does EPR actually mean for a company making, say, a smartphone?
It means that manufacturer is legally and financially responsible for the entire life cycle of that product. Collection, recycling, safe disposal, all of it.
So it forces them to change their design from the very beginning.
Because they bear the cost of the waste later. And second, they mandate design for disassembly standards.
So products are actually engineered to be repaired and recycled, not glued shut with proprietary parts.
Precisely. And this creates a huge new green job sector in repair and remanufacturing. It cuts our reliance on virgin raw materials and reinforces those economic equality goals we talked about. It's a perfect example of systems thinking.
Before we move on, we have to touch on Pillar 6, water security. The source material was a bit brief on this, but the scarcity of clean water is such a fundamental threat.
It is, and the solutions have to be community-driven and low cost. The blueprint prioritizes local water purification, tech like solar-powered membrane filters that can operate off-grid.
And sanitation.
But the biggest impact often comes from sanitation, especially in informal settlements, focusing on modular, prefabricated solutions.
Why is that such a crucial lever?
Because clean sanitation and access to water are fundamental to public health and to gender equality. When women and girls don't have to spend hours a day fetching water, or if they have safe, clean facilities at school,
their attendance and economic participation rates just jump.
Immediately. Clean water is a massive driver of human prosperity.
That perfectly bridges us to the last section, resilient systems and implementation. I mean, how do we govern and finance all of this? It starts with trust. Pillar 7, inclusive governance.
Trust is currency. The key strategy here is to institutionalize mechanisms for what they call policy co-creation.
Okay, that sounds like jargon. Let's clarify what policy co-creation means for the average citizen.
It means citizens aren't just, invited to comment on policy drafts that governments have already written. They are actively involved in the design process, maybe through permanent representative citizen assemblies. It moves governance from a top-down model to a truly collaborative structure.
That's ambitious. I mean, wouldn't independent assemblies just risk grinding the whole legislative process to a halt?
That's the challenge, sure. But the blueprint argues that the legitimacy you gain outweighs any temporary loss in speed. And to ensure accountability, it calls for independent watchdog bodies with real enforcement powers.
To fight corruption.
Right. Transparency and enforcement build trust faster than anything else.
And speaking of transparency, let's address the new terrain of power, the digital realm. Pillar 8, digital rights and ethical AI.
This is huge. It requires robust data privacy laws that ensure individuals actually retain control over their personal information. But more importantly, we need rigorous ethical AI frameworks.
What would those do specifically?
They would have to prohibit algorithmic bias, ensure systems are explainable, and mandate human-in-the-loop oversight for any high-risk applications.
That human oversight seems critical to prevent what the source calls the emergence of a data colonial elite.
Exactly. If unchecked AI systems, controlled by just a few big corporations, become the arbiters of everything from loans to judicial sentencing, we risk creating a new, highly centralized form of global power. It erodes individual autonomy and accountability.
So now we step back to the biggest picture. Pillar 18, global cooperation. Clearly, national boundaries don't stop a pandemic or climate change. What reforms are they proposing?
The blueprint calls for reforming legacy institutions like the UN Security Council, making them reflect today's geopolitical realities, and strengthening the Paris Agreement's compliance mechanisms. But the crucial piece is how we finance all that.
The perennial question. Where does the money come from?
This brings us to Pillar 19, ethical entrepreneurship. And the blueprint offers a specific mechanism, creating a global climate-just transition fund.
How is it funded?
It's financed by a very small levy, maybe a fraction of a percent, on international financial transactions. This mobilizes capital outside of traditional state budgets, which are often paralyzed by domestic politics.
But we've seen global levies like this struggle before. Jurisdictional disputes, enforcement issues. How do they propose getting around that?
By linking it directly to the global banking and trade system, making compliance an essential requirement for participation in the world financial system. The goal isn't just enforcement, though. It's about redirecting existing capital ethically.
So aligning finance with purpose.
Exactly. Using standardized impact measurement frameworks, things like IRIS Plus and ESG standards.
So they become a universal language for measuring not just profit, but positive impact.
Right. The document emphasizes establishing public-private impact incubators in underserved regions, directing capital towards local entrepreneurs solving local problems within this 20-pillar framework. Aligning global finance accelerates all of them at once.
That is the ultimate connector. Ensuring capital is seeking purposeful, measurable progress, not just maximal profit. These 20 pillars are so clearly interwoven threads.
That's the unifying message. And the blueprint's final guiding principles for how to actually do this are essential. The first is systems thinking, which we've seen throughout, designing solutions that benefit multiple pillars at the same time.
Like green school curricula addressing education and climate. And the second principle is making the system fair. Equity at the core. So interventions have to prioritize the most marginalized.
And to do that effectively, all progress has to be measured using disaggregated metrics.
What does that mean practically for, say, a new infrastructure project?
It means you don't just report the total number of people who got electricity. You break that number down. You disaggregate it by gender, by income, by ethnicity, by location.
So you can see who's being left behind.
You can see the invisible gaps, and you know exactly where to redirect resources.
And the third principle, which is very pragmatic, is iterative learning. Adopting that fail fast, learn fast mindset, relying on rigorous impact evaluations to constantly refine your approach before you scale it.
Which finally brings us to the capstone, Pillar 20, spiritual well-being and purpose-driven living. The document notes that a truly thriving civilization needs more than material metrics. It needs a sense of meaning and connection.
That's so often the overlooked piece of the puzzle. What specific actions do they suggest for fostering that at a societal scale?
Things like integrating mindfulness and contemplative practices into schools and workplaces, but also, crucially, encouraging community spaces, public gardens, accessible cultural centers, reflection parks that foster a sense of belonging and inner peace.
Because when individuals feel purposeful and connected, they're far more likely to contribute to the collective good. They're more likely to support conservation, participate in governance, hold power accountable.
It's the energy source for the other 19 pillars. The blueprint states we stand at a crossroads and can choose to collectively author a narrative of shared prosperity. So, given the heavy focus on transparency and accountability on public dashboards and open data, I want to leave you, our listener, with this final thought. How might you measure whether progress is actually being made on these 20 pillars in your own city or community?
That's a great question.
What specific measurable metrics from this blueprint, like the results of pay equity audits or the number of green roof policies adopted, or the actual institutionalization of a citizen assembly, What would you prioritize tracking to hold your local leadership accountable?
It's a powerful call to move from abstract ideas to concrete metrics. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the blueprint for humanity's next leap. Remember, the connections fixing water security links directly to women's empowerment and school attendance. It's all one complex system.
The challenge is to walk this path together, intentionally, courageously, and with an unwavering belief. Until next time, stay curious and keep digging deeper into the connections.